Ladies and gentlemen, please lower your expectations for What the Fnu!
Thank you. God, what a year it's been for video games, huh? I'll say this, if nothing else, 2014 has been a very interesting past 12 months for this industry. I mean, we've seen season passes be bought and canceled. We've seen some of the previously considered strongest developers out there become some of the weakest, and we've seen some of the previously considered weakest developers out there now stand on top. It's been a year where a petition was made to put Smash Brothers on the Vita. Seriously, that's a thing that happened. And unfortunately, we lost our founding father not too long ago. Ralph Baer, inventor of video games, unfortunately passed away earlier this month. But we're not here to talk about that today, no. Today, we are here to talk about these. These are the golden slices, our highest honors here at Team Pizza, given only to those who exemplify everything that makes video games so awesome in the first place. Those people who are working tirelessly to keep pushing our medium forward into exciting new places you and I can't even imagine right now. And to those who help realize what makes video games so uniquely special in the first place. But to properly credit these guys for the work that they've done, we need a different kind of award. Something that may seem a little strange at first, but after you think about it for a while, it actually makes a lot of sense. Or at least something resembling it anyway. You see, we're under the impression here at Team Pizza that the entire way we categorize video game genres is fundamentally wrong. Its mechanics space is a thing. You've got first-person shooters, real-time strategy, massively multiplayer online role-playing games. Does that sound weird to anyone else? I mean, we don't call the Die Hard movies slow-mo explosion films, nor do we refer to books by their complex literary styles. And just like how something doesn't need to rhyme to be poetry, we don't need to play a first-person shooter in a lot of cases to feel like a gun-toting one-man army. It's the same reason you see a lot of video games out there that try to emulate something that's already popular but end up falling flat regardless. That's because the developers of that second game didn't take time to analyze the core reasons somebody would be playing a game like that. The basic emotions we're trying to invoke as players when we pick up this particular kind of interactive experience. And I tell you what, pay attention to the guys who do take the time to analyze those types of things because they are the real heroes. They're the ones who are going to be driving the industry here in the coming year because not only are they going to be making some of the greatest games we're going to be playing in 2015, but some of the greatest video games of all time. So do us a favor, guys. If you agree with this kind of philosophy, like this video, subscribe, show it to everybody you know in real life, share it on Twitter, on Facebook, however you like. Because the more people that see these awards, the more they matter, the more they mean something, the more they actually drive sales, and the more we send a positive, constructive message to the guys who are in charge of the games, the best games we haven't even played yet, and the better those games are going to be. Now, that's not to say all of these categories are going to be completely foreign to you. In fact, I'm pretty sure every single one of us is familiar with this first one. Yeah, because no matter how you look at it, this is an inseparable part of the video game industry. Yeah, you've got this big RPG you're going on right now, this vast, expansive world of an MMO, and maybe you even got this real-time strategy game with a great narrative and this political intrigue, but maybe you just want to blow something up right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present the first award of the first ever Golden Pizza Awards. This is our category for Best Action.
Best Action: Sunset Overdrive. Yeah, I'm kinda glad Insomniac doesn't work for any actual military organizations, because if even some of these guns were available for pedestrian use, society as we know it would no longer exist. Yeah, it takes a while to wrap your head around it, but once you figure out how Overdrive is supposed to be played, the game flows like a river. Throw in hundreds of enemies and overall hilarious writing, and you've got the perfect recipe for good old, stupid, brainless fun. Bayonetta 2. Games like Bayonetta 2 are the reason terms like Spectacle Brawler exist. Games like Bayonetta 2 are also the reason that the only Spectacle Brawlers anyone remembers fondly are all made by Platinum. The controls in this game are so responsive your brain might have trouble keeping up with how reactive the buttons are. The sheer scale of what you'll have accomplished by the end of a single level here dwarfs the climax moments of entire other games, and then it throws you a rank in a cutscene like nothing unusual happened. It's just that kind of game, and it is glorious. Hyrule Warriors. We all have our comfortable little happy place in games, something we could play for hours on end despite that time essentially boiling down to being the same repetitive action over and over. This is by all rights a series that should have gotten old a long time ago, but with the addition of the most fantastic characters a Dynasty Warriors game has ever hosted, a constant flow of rewards that add new and interesting wrinkles to the gameplay with every unlock, and a soundtrack by the gods of Valhalla themselves, there is simply nothing that feels like Hyrule Warriors does. Strider. Unfortunately, we've all been burned pretty badly by a revived Sacred Cow in the past, which is why efforts like 2014's Strider are such a welcome addition to our lives. There is no other game that came out this year that demands you master it in such a compelling way. It's a game that rewards every success with explosions of color and a character that progressively becomes more and more of a joy to pilot effortlessly through mobs and mobs of baddies. Add this to some wicked boss fights and a story that actually knows when to take a back seat, and you have a textbook display of a game that knows exactly what it wanted to do with its life. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. My god, WayForward knows how to make a good platformer, and this has never been exemplified better than with Pirate's Curse. The focus on a new set of tools for the titular protagonist makes the game much faster, which in turn allows for much more expansive and explorable levels as a result, two things that fans of the series have always gravitated to. Not only that, 4 out of 5 of the game's main power-ups have some kind of combat as well as explorative function, showing a care to get as much experimentation and creative level design with as little as possible. Both immediately recognizable traits of elegant design. Something that's obvious at this point, WayForward knows all too well. Making a good action game is all about achieving the highest highs possible. It's about never letting up on that feeling of moving towards something greater, something even more pulse-pounding and high tension than the last, while still making sure to both pace yourself and vary up the types of set pieces you offer so that it doesn't all just get stale. All of these games are great examples of that philosophy, but only one does it better than all the others combined. And the winner is... Bayonetta 2! Every single moment of this game is exhilarating. To stop playing Bayonetta 2 is like getting off the most badass roller coaster you've ever ridden, leaving your lungs breathless and your blood so filled with adrenaline that all you want is more. It's a game so over the top, so lost in its own glorious insanity, and so polished to a mirror sheen that it exists on another plane of action gaming existence. This is a game that simply needed to be made. And like its sultry protagonist, it's something you have to feel to truly understand.
People who know me know that I'm a writer. And as a writer, I'm a student of English, which means it kind of irks me when I see people interchangeably using words that appear to mean the same thing, but actually have totally different usages and contexts for which they're appropriate. Take the words graphics and aesthetics, for example, when it comes to video games. It drives me up the wall when I see people think that they may mean the same thing, because making a distinction between those two is actually one of the most important things you can possibly do as a graphic designer in this industry. I think the idea of arguing graphic fidelity in this day and age is actually a moot point, because some of the most powerful tools out there to make a game as strong as possible hardware-wise is available for free for a lot of indie developers. All you need is the right will and tools to make it happen. What's more important these days is creating a good aesthetic. That is, helping your game stand apart visually, helping it create its own unique style, its own feel, its own visual flair that is unlike anything else in the market today. And the people who nail that really nail it. It's the reason people remember Final Fantasy IX a lot better than they do Final Fantasy VIII these days, just as an example. Which is why we're here to honor such a craft today. This is the award for Best Aesthetic.
Best Aesthetic. South Park, Stick of Truth. I think the common phrase associated with this game's reviews was, "It feels like you're playing an episode of the show." But as overused as that observation is, it is dead on. Everything feels like it was handcrafted by Matt and Trey themselves, from the humor and character abilities to the very particular way everything is animated. This is hands down one of the best video game adaptations of any IP in recent history, and it deserves every bit of praise it gets. Transistor. Deciding to take a more elegant approach to Cyberpunk, Transistor's soft colors and beautiful vistas continue building on the groundwork set by Bastion before it. And that's the key word here, color, and the mastery of its usage. Abilities have a visual impact that makes them feel much bigger than they actually are. Characters just pop against the beautifully rendered streets and environments, and even the two main characters, being Red and her green talking sword, are complementary hues. Games like this are the reason animation is still one of our proudest fields of work. Marvin's Mittens. I'll bet you didn't see this one coming, because we certainly didn't when we bought it on a whim. What started as expectations for an okay platformer were soon replaced by jaw-dropping hand-painted art and backgrounds that are just flooring. This is also a case of an aesthetic that's smart enough to complement the overall feel of the game, invoking a mood of peace, calm, and the wonders of nature, amazingly without shoving any of it down your throat. Marvin's Mittens is proof positive that you should never underestimate any studio, no matter how small. Child of Light. Do I need to say anything? Ubisoft created an entire engine to host the amazing art their teams have put together, and just look at the result. Child of Light may function on a 2D plane, but the backgrounds are so detailed and well crafted that the in-game world feels like it could go on forever. I wouldn't be surprised if every hue of every watercolor ever wasn't in this game somewhere. This is truly an experience that evokes those fond memories of all those old children's books, and it takes you right back to that same magical place that they did. The Banner Saga. Rotoscoped animation. You'd think nobody would even consider the technique in this day and age, and yet Banner Saga did, and somehow they made it work. Maybe it's how the character portraits give you such a detailed idea of who you're talking to in the story sections. Maybe it's how the battles are functionally step by step themselves, or maybe it's just how the world passes you by at such a leisurely pace. But whatever the reason, everything looks like it belongs here, which is exactly what a good aesthetic should do. The beautiful thing about art is that it is, by its very nature, subjective. Everybody is going to gravitate towards different things when they consider what makes a good aesthetic and what doesn't. As such, when we all voted on the categories this year, I expected input to be all over the place for this award. Not so. To my utter surprise, the game that took it this year won unanimously, which, considering the team is off in different parts of the country right now where our opinions can't influence one another, says a lot. This game must have done something right, which is why I feel no reservations about giving it these honors, even amongst such stiff competition. And the winner is... South Park, Stick of Truth. If you had no idea about Stick of Truth, you might misconstrue footage from the game for clips from the show. The level of care and attention to source material here is something to be respected. Even the new elements they had to introduce feel like natural parts of the universe, never looking out of place, and more importantly, never breaking character. This is something that every licensed developer, given the chance, should aspire to, which is why it gets our award for Best Aesthetic of 2014. Sorry guys, this event ended up being so big we had to split it into a week-long series. But I figured instead of ending off every episode with a to be continued screen or something lame and uncreative like that, why not give some love to even more guys who deserve it? This is a segment called Games You Might Not Have Tried, and what it is that at the end of every episode, we'll be highlighting a game that is extremely interesting, yet for one reason or another, didn't quite get the attention it deserved. And I can think of no better way to start that off than with the kick-started anomaly, the Tesla Effect, a Tex Murphy adventure. It should be immediately obvious why this game stands out in today's market. It's an FMV game. For those of you who don't know what that is, FMV stands for full motion video, which was something that was popularized back when CDs really started to come into their own as a main method for games distribution. Essentially, FMVs became a standard tool for storytelling in this era, because it could actually be fit on the disc now, a la DVDs. However, as time went on and more infamous examples like Plumbers Don't Wear Ties were released, the genre kinda went the way of point-and-click adventure games in that it just phased out of existence. Now here comes a group who has a heart and soul for these kinds of games, advertising that they'd want to create a new one and need Kickstarter's help to do it. Apparently they're not the only ones who wanted to see this happen either, because they managed to get $598,104 to make it with their initial goal being $450,000. It just blows my mind that something like this exists, that it was allowed to exist in this day and age, but that's the power of crowdfunding for you. It allows for this kind of experimentation where there would otherwise be none, and I think we can all agree that the industry would be lesser for it. For those of you who had fond memories of this genre, or maybe have never seen one before and are morbidly curious, or maybe just want to be reminded of what happens when crowdfunding goes right, look no further than the Tesla Effect.